Hey, I got a cool story to tell you. My father and I traveled to Finland in 2016. And after a few days in Helsinki and a side trip to Turku, both of those stories are in my line, in my feed. We went to the Lapland. It's a place my dad has never been. And he specifically wanted to visit Finland during Juhanus. And we found ourselves flying into Rovaniemi the day before Juhanus, and we landed in Rovaniemi, had no issues getting the rental car. We spent a few hours in Rovaniemi. We were staying quite a ways north in a town called Kittilä, and I wasn't sure what kind of grocery store we'd be able to get to or whatever, so we just decided we were going to stock up on some snacks. And so my dad went right to the fish counter. I was looking for coffee and some really good Finnish rye bread, and so we got our stuff and we rounded this corner, and I swear we turned this corner and both my dad and I just stood there mouth agape as the angels started singing. We saw this entire refrigerated wall completely filled with thousands of types of herring. And after a good minute, we realized that our bounty was going to be good. So we started looking at all the different types of herring, which my dad and I just absolutely love. And we decided on the 5 or 6 types, and we got a couple jars of each. I mean, I actually brought almost a case of it home. But we got the herring, and then my dad said, I don't know what kind of liquor stores they're going to have up there. Let's stop at the liquor store if you don't mind. I said, sure, absolutely. So every time we'd walked in a couple liquor stores in Helsinki, and my dad was kind of searching for something. I said, Dad, I love Laka liquor. Just so you guys know, the Finnish have come up with, oh my gosh, it's I'm not even going to call it an aperitif or a cocktail or anything. This Laka liquor is made from Laka berries, cloudberries, and I honestly think the Lord has one every night before he finishes his dinner. It is, it's heaven on earth. If you've never tried Laka liquor, you have to go to Finland and get yourself a bottle. So I said, Dad, the Laka liquor's over here. He said, no, I'm not looking for that. So I picked up a bottle of that, and he went up to the counter and started speaking in Finnish with the gentleman who was running the counter. And the guy took him over to this display and pointed to that and said, I kind of figured, is this what you're looking for? And my dad just jumped out of his skin. He said, that's it. So he bought like 4 or 5 bottles of this stuff. And so we get in the car and he pulls out a bottle of this stuff and he says, this is what my dad used to drink all the time. I remember him coming home and he used to call this kipprahente, which means curly tail. And it has the Finnish lion on it. And my dad's, one of the big jokes my grandpa and dad used to laugh about was, when was the last time anybody ever saw a lion in Finland, which is the Finnish crest. But they called it curly tail because of the curl in the lion's tail. And my grandfather used to laugh that, no, it's the curl it puts in your own tail after you drink it. So we got up to Kittilä. We were staying at this hotel called the Hullu Poro, which in English means crazy reindeer. And it was great. Everybody we ran across said, you guys are Americans? And yeah. Why are you here? I said, well, it's the Lapland. They said, no, the snow melted just, not too long ago. This is our downtime. This is when everything gets refurbished and repairs are made before people start coming in for berry picking season because the summer is so short. Why are you here? I said, well, we're here for Juhanus. And they said, well, okay, that's as good enough of a reason as any. So I found out from the front desk that they were going to have a Juhanus Kokko, which is a big bonfire for Juhanus at the top of this mountain. This mountain is called a tunturi, And from my father said is, hey, this a tunturi, I think, if I remember my Finnish correctly, means something like something that shouldn't be here. And the Lapland is not flat. It's not flat as a pancake, but there are no mountains. But you come around the bend and there's this enormous mountain. It obviously is something that shouldn't be there, so that makes sense. But man, our drive up from Rovaniemi, there was this huge sign. I actually stopped and took a picture of it, and I said, Dad, what does this mean? Translate it, because there was a picture of a reindeer on it and some very stern words. It looked like a warning sign. And he said, yep, that's a warning. It basically says, if you hurt or kill a reindeer, you're responsible and you have to pay for it. It seems to me that all the reindeer that are up here are owned by farmers. They're not just running wild. So he said, so just drive careful. So, okay. I said, well, I have to be real careful when it gets dark. And he looked at me and he said, what? I said, well, that's when whitetails come out, is when it gets dark. He said, Rusty, this is June. We're in the Lapland. The sun doesn't set. I said, oh, that's right. Land of the midnight sun. Okay. So I did take my time. And I tell you, it wasn't more than a half hour later, I actually tapped my dad on the shoulder and said, Dad, you got to wake up. You got to see this. This reindeer had crossed the road and was just kind of trotting alongside the road. And so I pulled the car up next to him and I got out my GoPro and I got a video of him. And he didn't budge. He just kind of looked at me and just kept on doing his thing. I could have touched him. I didn't. But he had a tag in his ear. And not too many miles after that, we saw a mother with not a newborn, but it was a very small calf. And the feet on these things are huge. I didn't realize how big the feet of a reindeer are, but it was wonderful. I think we saw a few more on the way before we got to Kittilä. So one pair, they had a calf as well. I don't know if it was two females or a male and a female, but one of them jumped over this chain and the little one ran right underneath it and the other one ran right into it. So I think that must have been the hullu poro. The next day, actually on Juhanus, I booked us a fishing trip with Jesper Larsson, who lives across the border into Sweden. So we drove to the river that separates Finland and Sweden, and we met up with him. This was early morning, and he took us out to the river to go fishing. Unfortunately, we had to cut the trip short because it was a thunderstorm and it was lightning everywhere. I don't really want to be in a boat holding a graphite rod when there's lightning out. So we cut the trip short, and they fed us lunch. It was a fantastic time, hearing some great stories. There's an island just off of his property, or the property that he guides for, that's half in Finland and half in Sweden. And he had mentioned that it's great on New Year's Eve because they'll go out to the island and they'll spend New Year's Eve and celebrate in Sweden. And when that's all over, they cross over the line and wait another hour and celebrate it again in Finland. So that's a very Finnish way of doing things. Anyway, we got back a little bit, oh gosh, pretty late, like 8 o'clock or so. And I went up to the front desk and asked how we could get up to the top. Could I just drive my car? And she said, oh, no, you missed the bus, but we'll take you up there. So one of their employees took us up in a van, and so we went up. I had no idea how big this mountain was until we got up there. It's really something. And we got up there, and they had already lit the bonfire, and this bonfire was enormous. I'll bet you it was at least 2 stories tall. I was expecting just a fire pit. This thing was enormous. They had fire trucks all around just in case it got out of hand. But you could feel, as soon as we got out of the truck, you could feel that fire. It was still burning hot. Right at the top of this mountain, you had the beautiful look throughout the Lapland, and you had the aurinko, the sun, which I looked at my watch about after we were there for a good hour or so, and it was midnight. And the sun was still up. It looked like daylight. It was really something special. I got some good pictures with my dad, met some fantastic people. The one thing that was really interesting though, some guy pointed at my GoPro and said, nice GoPro. I said, yeah, yours too. And he said, well, yours looks a little newer. And I just purchased it before we left for Finland. A friend of mine told me, buy a GoPro, document everything. I did, and it's the best, some of the best advice I've ever been given. So we were talking and comparing the different tools and all that kind of stuff and what we like about it and all that. And so my dad leans over and starts speaking Finnish to him. And this guy leans back over to me and said, I thought you guys were Americans. I said, yeah. He said, where the heck is he from? Pointing to my dad. I said, well, he was born in Helsinki. He said, I'm from Helsinki. He spoke perfect English. Everybody over there spoke perfect English. He said, he speaks better Finnish than I do. But it's kind of an older Finnish. He doesn't use a lot of the newer words. I said, well, he's only been back a couple of times. He left in 1947. He said, ah, that explains it. We had a wonderful time, met some fantastic people. And I think the best part about it was the picture of my dad. I'll post this picture and you can see the absolute joy on his face. He got to see Juhanus Kokko during Juhanus in the Lapland in his home country of Finland. Hey, hey. Wow. Awesome.
I'm having the best time of my life.